I already. We are live, bro. Sis.
We are always alive.
We are
You know,
always
that's
alive.
that's a word in English that bothered me when I learned English.
Yeah.
Is it live, live? How do you know? English is such a pain in the ass, man.
English is a really ugly language.
Yeah, it is, and it's the
Doesn't
most
express.
used. But I think it's because it's like so easy to learn. You know, like
Probably.
anybody can learn English. So
Yeah.
that it has its use. I mean, like anything. See, there's an ugliness to it, and there's the beauty that it's kind of simple.
Yeah. True.
And see, the simplicity of the words are also important, which sex is only 3 letters.
Yes.
So let's talk about this. We promise sexuality today. So I think I want to start with the animal side of it, which is where it seems like where we started learning sexuality as teenagers or children, depending on our formation, and then it became this taboo. So it's almost like even the most simplistic representation of sex or sexuality in general has been suppressed since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it has to do
For
with
sure.
societal, perceptions about sexuality and everything. Um, and it creates this idea that it's like the private thing, and like you can't talk about it, you can mention it, you don't get educated on it. Um, so what's your take as to why this was since the beginning? Let's just start there, like that animalistic reaction that we have, or even exploration of it, and it gets suppressed. Why?
Why it gets suppressed?
Yeah, like why would society do that?
Well, it's pretty obvious, first and foremost, because from my point of view, and I think everybody can agree on that sexual energy in its purest form create life. And it was what created us in the beginning when we were small particles in space forced together in the attraction. So we have this force of energy that can combat everything and create life. So I guess that these people who eventually figure that out, and they know that now because they know all the keys to life. They know that by holding us in our animalistic body, they also know that they can make us only count on physical appearance and materialism and is staying in this survival space. So by suppressing sexual energy and not educating people in it, they control our instincts and they can feed us with all these things that they're doing now. And we will jump right into it because we have no idea what we're doing because we're not in contact with the true sexual force. So I think it's the major part. It is, if you have need to have this system, you need to maintain people in survival. And you do that by suppressing the sexual energy in the animalistic way.
So we got suppressed, and then we got reprogrammed into what
Yeah.
sexuality is.
Yeah.
They made it easy for even adults, to self-regulate this on children. And then we got programmed with um, just the media itself telling us what sexuality actually is, which is, a form of control. And you know, I I didn't grow up in a family that was open, of course, to talk about this stuff. It's still actually a little uncomfortable, even after years of being, open minded about this topic. I gotta be honest, like it's still kind of uncomfortable to to talk about it, and I think it's mainly because of the preconceived notions that people have about it and how they feel, and as empaths, we tend to absorb that energy that people are giving off, when you talk about anything. if they make him feel uncomfortable, angry, sad, or whatever, you pick that up, and it makes it even more like awkward. So I wonder like why over time, even as an adult, we maintain that childish perception of sexuality. And the thing is
Yeah,
that we all have, something. Granted, there's always the outliners that have a limitation on it. Maybe they're a little asexual, but everybody has some sort of expression. It's like it's part of you. It's almost like not wanting to be, not wanting to express who you are. So that's I think probably it's amazing that it starts since childhood and remains until you're an adult. And you think it has to do with the programming that consistently goes on over time?
for sure. We have, if you take, like, I take a personal example of how I was taught in sexuality in schools. Um, the sexuality class, or it was, I think it was in seventh grade or something. We had like 2 days of sexual education where it was all about chlamydia, diseases. It was about blood, but in the blood that you need to have this diaper on, and it was about pregnancy. So, first of all, I didn't know how to have sex, in the way how to use this energy. I was not taught in what sex actually was, and that it was the driven force of everything here in life. And then I also had these idols of celebrities that was almost half naked that I looked up to, and all these distorted movies of people having really unrealistic sex where it just like slide on and it just looks so beautiful. And then you think about, oh, I want to have sex like that, and you look like a fucking idiot when, like, sex is not sexy. Let's just be clear about that first of all. But there was all these distortion of this image, and then there was so much shame and guilt because it was not an open thing. I mean, masturbation you needed to do that in hiding, and it was just a very taboo subject. So that we have been, it's a program, and we were just left with us to explore. And I think that this shame and guilt, especially in women, has been a big deal, and this distortion in the masculine also, this dominance. And I think it's from early childhood, definitely, because we weren't taught in it at all, and our parents too. It is an ongoing process of not having a clue about what sexual energy is at all, and
Yeah.
it's sad. I think it's super sad because
I
it's
mean,
life.
and that's the thing. I mean, it's like you said, it's the most powerful energy that we have in terms of, like the physical energy. And you were talking about like how masturbation became, like a secluded thing. It has to be like, uh, hiding because, and you had to do it fast too. You couldn't. It's not this thing that was meant to be, but something then, especially with men, because I didn't learn this until probably recently. Like how much energy you, as a man, exhaust when you ejaculate,
Yeah,
and the actual purpose of that too. And to think that that moment, that sacred moment, gets wasted, just for the search of like a quick pleasure, like a
yeah,
quick fix of what you need. So I'm amazed at how much it mimics almost like the same behavior patterns that we have with food, with video games or anything. Which again, it's nothing wrong with food. It's nothing wrong with video games. Nothing wrong with anything. It's just the type of association that we make between that and the pleasure that it gives, and how we kind of like link that to an ecstasy search. Like we seek it really
yeah.
fast. Same, obviously, with drugs, but I think that's the driving point that no matter no matter how you see it, there's always something, like you said, that you feel ashamed, that you feel wrong. And I still don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of embarrassment, or maybe over time, you become like more self-conscious about what you're doing, and or even as I don't know. It's interesting. Have you ever explored like why you feel or you felt ashamed, or does it have to do also with your surroundings? I mean, what's up
Yeah,
with
of
that?
course. Yeah, like for example, we were never taught that our whole autonomy here, like our whole body is like one big intelligent system, and everything is stick together and is working together. And for women, especially women, shame and guilt is down here in our base, in our womb. So if we have lived suppressed as women has experienced throughout time, our womb is super sacred. I mean, children is created in there, and feelings is layered in here, and the masculine has in somehow dominated that in some, not man but the masculine energy. So there has been a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, and also a lot of diminishing that women don't have that power, which is layered down in our womb, which is then layered out in our sexual energy, because we are not healed in our womb, and there is a lot of traumas that is how you say it, yeah, that maintain down there if we don't work it out. I've been working a lot with my pussy, my womb, my whole base down there, my chakra and glands down there. And it's amazing how many, it's my mother that is down there, it's the traumas from my childhood, it's a lot of things that is being graved in there, when and I don't get out because we don't see each other in that space too. When we relate, we just have sex and don't think about what actually is down there, that it's super sensitive, it's so sacred, and it's a holy space, it needs to be worshipped. But we have never worshipped that part of us and been seen in that part. So I believe that is why the woman, I can't speak for the man, but the woman and the feminine energy has been so distorted that it hasn't been worked through, and it hasn't been seen and worshipped in the way that it really deserve. I mean, so I think that's where the shame and guilt come from. We forget that it's layered down there. And the same with the man. I
Yeah.
mean, he just cut off his own womb, invisible womb, to the emotional attach he have. So it's like a very distorted two energies of feminine and masculine.
Yeah, I feel you there. That's a lot, because in with men, the thing that I notice, in sexuality, is that well, first of all, we are all about performance. Like
Hmm.
you have, and somebody taught me once that it's. She told me that, and it was so obvious but shocking at the same time that I never thought about it, that men want to continue to have an erection, like it's a porn scene or something, where you
Yeah.
have this erection for a half hour, which can only be maintained with some exogenous substance. But it's such a distorted, and this is what happens, and hopefully, men who listen to this can understand this, is that you don't need to maintain a porn erection, to, like, sex is not only about an erection. And this, again, it's such an important thing that it becomes um like a loop of destruction in the moment, because naturally, it would fluctuate. And once you see that it fluctuates the first time, you think there's something wrong with you, and you start getting worried, and your worry goes there, and then it becomes like, all right, it can get it up again, and then it goes back and up, and then it's a whole mess. So it's true, like, sexual play. And I'm talking about, like, now, sex with someone else, but it's your perception of who you are. You don't understand your body, like you're saying. you see it as a tool as opposed to, part of your body, and you got to stay in tune with it. And the other distortion that I see terrible, with men in terms of performance, is that idea that, it's not sex but fucking,
Yeah.
it's just it's a it's not even animal, because there's an animal side of it where you just, which I would say it's like the psychedelic part of sexual, activity. When you get lost in the feelings, like that's the beauty of it. But in the performance side, like you have to be, this ramming machine, for 20 minutes, because that's what you have seen over time, and nobody taught you what sexuality is and how to enjoy and how to exchange the energy with the other person. Like I'm grateful that I was never, into that, because to me it just seemed like I was using somebody, and to me that was always like weird and not pleasurable. And one thing that I did enjoy over time always was that, this probably comes from the empathic feeling also of, how you want to be in a room or an environment where you want people to be happy, right? You want people to be you don't want people to be sad. You want people to be okay. So you want to always bring enjoyment to people. That's what we do. In the same way, I saw sexuality, because to me it was like, if I don't have, or if she doesn't have pleasure, I don't have pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a basic concept, but a lot of people don't think about it. And I mean, we can get into how many women unfortunately have had, partners for life and never had an orgasm because they
Yeah.
never explored. Like that's such a shame, and it's such a terrible result of our education in
Yeah.
sex. But again, it's like there's it's part of you. It's almost like not enjoying a meal. I'm sorry. I always make like food analogies when it comes to sex. It's a pleasure, but it's a necessity as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's how it should be perceived. And without obviously, like, my God, there's so much to talk about this, but just to
Yeah.
stay in
Sure.
line with the part of the performance, like we said at the beginning, as a child, you don't get in. Nobody tells you. No woman actually educates you on it. Like I said, I feel lucky to a degree that I didn't get into that idea that sex is just this pornographic animal performance, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to just the interaction with women in my case. And I did enjoy that, because and I would notice if there was something, and I would always try to adapt to the woman. But even that is like considered advanced, and I am by no means advanced into what actual sexuality is when it comes to like Eastern knowledge that comes from thousands of years, and tantra and all this stuff that it's completely new to me, and I'm still exploring, and it's just another level. But let's not go into tantra yet. We have a lot to cover before we get into that.
Yeah.
I
But
don't know
yeah,
what you're.
and I feel you. Like I feel all the men out there. And it must be so exhausting to have this urge or feeling or this nagging desire to perform and to satisfy. Like what a heavy burden to have on your shoulder whenever you have sex. And I think a lot of men has that without even thinking about it. But I think a lot of men carries that burden with them, like this performing. And it's a lot. I think it's more than you just like feel or think. I think it's heavy.
Yeah,
It's
it
sad,
is.
but it's a distortion.
Yeah,
Nothing else than that.
I I don't remember having somebody who had a different idea into what actually as a man, and that's I think that's the sad thing, that even in conversations when it came to this, I don't remember having somebody who had some really, really valuable, knowledge onto like improving my sexuality. It was almost like a self exploration. And of course, it depends, on other people. Masturbation is just another thing. It's um, you, and again, this can be explored with tantra, which is something completely, new to me. But it's the for the men, especially for the men. Um, it's kind of like a bizarre concept for us, in the Western world to think that, we link ejaculation with orgasm.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard that there is a clear distinction between the two, and they're not, paired always together.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, that's weird. You have to ejaculate to have an orgasm, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
And it became this thing that you have to find stimuli from external sources always, to have some sort of pleasure. And
Yeah.
I'm still in that point. Like, for me, it's like really hard to have like a self, exploration of myself to feel pleasure. Like, so many years of conditioning.
Yeah.
Plus, there's another part that I'll confess of myself, and I'm sure that a lot of men have this, is that I wonder if that's the case with most men. That I think we talked about this before, like the sensitivity of the body,
Yeah.
like feeling your own body. It also, for us men, I think it's probably a like embarrassing, self-embarrassing, to admit to yourself that you're enjoying the touch of your body,
Yeah.
because we're men, we're supposed to be just, a fucking machine. That's what we do,
Yeah.
there's no pleasure besides, just looking for the orgasm
Yeah.
and ejaculation. And
Yeah.
so, there's, it's such a depth in this whole male sexuality that, again, is it's really, really hard to come out of it too after so many years of conditioning.
Yeah.
And again, it's you depend on other sources, because at least women, and I want to hear your take on this, women seem to be hardwired to have more enjoyment of their body, at least physically. But I know there must be external sources that make you feel ashamed and embarrassed of your own physical being. Is
Yeah.
that right?
I think like, as I say, I think that there is a lot of insecurity going on with regards to this ideal body and how to appreciate the body. I think it's the same, but like the man was taught and raised in this philosophy of men has no feelings. So of course you're detached to the part that says that you actually have feelings, and you have a lot of feelings like the woman have, and it's like the same, but the man was taught in being the strong one, as you said, with the pride and men don't cry, and I mean all these things. And I think like women, I don't know if I think it's the same. I mean, we are both, the man and the woman is distorted. I don't know if women enjoy their body. Like me personally, back in times, I didn't enjoy my body at all. I mean, as the man has complex with his genitals, women has the same with the body. I mean, like there's so much insecurity about everything. So I don't think that women enjoys the body more, but I think women has a tendency of expressing feelings more, because they're more allowed to have feelings and to
Hmm.
be vulnerable and to cry. That's the woman's job. So it's like these two archetypes of the man and the woman.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. It's hard to explore those things because everything seems to build up on the last one, right? And it's a shame actually that we have to go through this process of um, self discovery, which is the majority of the cases. I think, like there's,
Yeah.
like I said, there's very little education on this.
Yeah.
And I am a result of that. You are a result of that. And I think somebody was commenting already, um, I deeply do feel the shame coming from both of you, and myself included. I tell you, like,
It's
this is something that,
beautiful.
you know what? It's something that everybody wants to talk about,
Yeah.
but nobody feels comfortable, with the topic. I Especially in public, like, this is something that it's embarrassing to know that people are listening you talk about. But I mean, you have to. It's a again, once you recognize who you are and you recognize that this is just part of you, and it's first, like, recognizing that it's your own energy, and
Hmm.
that you need to circulate it, in its own way. And just like you said, I think the word was worship it, because it's such a gift to
Yeah.
have this. And the healing part really comes from, again, anything when it comes to healing is about recognizing those things that you are by the ego, and not who you are by the soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a hard work, because you have to challenge everything that you are. You have to
Hmm.
challenge
Every
anything
belief.
that goes, against the truth of how you feel and what it really is. And from there is
Yeah.
where you start exploring truly. And just recognizing those things, it's even more embarrassing to say, like, "Ah, I have to give up what I used to do. I have to give up those things that were detrimental to me, in my perception of sexuality, whether that be porn, or the people that you would look for, or the type of activity that you would do, the type of sex that you were looking for as well. Like it, and then there's no one way to do it. There's no right or wrong. I think it's just a self exploration, and all those, especially talking about like perversions, like that's another deep topic. How do you recognize perversion from inclinations, like something that you enjoy or want to do, or a perversion in and of itself?
You mean in myself?
Yeah, in general.
Perversion, but that's a bad word. But there
So, all
is
right,
something.
we all agree that, say, which is the topic now, the hot, bread out there, pedophilia, like, that's a perversion. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's an extreme.
Yeah.
Let's call it that way. But there's still perversions that people may feel inclined to, and nobody talks
Yeah.
about. And
Yeah.
even, I tell you something, like, even there are some sort of perversions that they are not as developed as what we see, in the news and everything that's happening with this, human trafficking and all this stuff. But those are like the extreme cases of the extreme perversions.
Yeah.
People have these perversions as, I would say, like, as a temptation too, or even
Yeah.
something that seems like, that seems, in general, just kind of mild, but in the same way you get like a warning in yourself.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can see it. But it's also because the energy field here on Earth right now is very perversion, or how you say it, it's a perversion energy. I mean, like, look at the Vatican, look at our elite, our famous people. They are just praying to children and pedophilia and all that. But they has also awakened the more sinister side of us. But I have this feeling like there is still a existing rape outside. There is existing murder. There is existing sexual abuse. That means that's a reflection of me too. I am those things too. And I will say, like, that there is some part of me inside of me that want to do these things, but it's not me. It's just this instinct. And I actually had a really beautiful ceremony about this topic. And I think I was in Egypt to a retreat where I expressed this desire of wanting to, I think it was rape. And I was with a partner, and my partner, the meaning was to meet me in that space with love, that I could express this without doing it, but was meeting in, she was meeting me in love. Like she just loved me, even though that I had this desire. And I think that that's like when we recognize these sides in ourselves and we are met in love in those bad things, because nothing is really good and bad, but in these things that is distorted inside of us, we get it, we set it free, and we feel love in that space. So it's not a forbidden thing, it's not a taboo thing, it's not a perversion, it's just a part of us that is also okay to have, not make action out of it, but when you speak it out loud and it's being met in it, you will not have the need to do it, because you know with your rational mind that you will never do it. And I think that's the beautiful thing, and that's why so much of us is lost ourselves in sexuality, because we don't meet each other in love. We meet each other in greed, in jealousy, in control, in neediness, in merging. Like we meet each other in spaces that do not recall love, like unconditional love. And I think like that's the whole awakening of perversion right there, because that's how we relate. You feel me? Because we are
Absolutely.
all these things. We are those things, and it's okay.
So this is how I perceive it now that you're talking about it, and it makes a lot of sense. As soon as you say love, that's the key word,
Yeah,
because when these perversions, start in your mind, it could be even external. It could be, like a thought form that is not really part of you. It
yeah,
could be part of, like you said, it's part of our world and it gets attached there somehow, whether we saw it, directly, or we got influence, or simply, just like I said, a thought form that came into, I call them negative implants. But
yeah,
the thing is that usually you would kind of communicate this in some way, but because of the shame and everything that surrounds sexuality, you create your own judgment out of it.
yeah,
And unless you find somebody that you can talk to about it, completely honest, because that's the thing. And one thing that also includes this whole thing is that we are always hiding, something. We don't express ourselves completely when we talk about, sex, because the judgment can be too hard,
yeah,
and that would make us feel terrible. Whereas
yeah,
other topics, we don't care, we just talk about it and whatever. If you understood me, that's great. If not, fuck it, it goes
yeah,
like that. But this is something that you don't express fully. So if I'm going to tell you one of my, sexual fantasies, I probably won't tell you, the full thing, but I'll tell you like a mild version. And from there, I keep judging that fantasy, that idea that I have, right?
yeah,
And you start creating a whole parallel universe in your mind about this idea,
yeah,
and it could go into a downward spiral here, because like you were saying, you start feeling this perception of it terrible. But once you find somebody where you can talk to, and you find that you are loved in that space, oh
yeah,
my god, that's just like such a release.
yeah,
You feel like, oh, so everything I said in my head wasn't actually true, which is the whole thing about also spiritual growth. When you challenge yourself into any notion, and you express it, and you have somebody, a mentor, a partner, a shaman, whoever, and they tell you like, dude, calm down, it's okay, it's not what you're thinking, and they're there, you go and say, wow, okay, it's not at all, what I was creating in my head.
yeah,
So I think, you know what, in my tribe, this is what we're going to do. We're going to
yeah,
have this. There's no, somebody asked last week, if we had rules or anything. No rules. You have to talk about it. You have to be yourself. And truly, I mean, even the people who may feel uncomfortable hearing this kind of stuff, they get healed on this, because now they may say, well, I actually have some fantasies in my head that I never talk about it.
Yeah.
which is another thing,
Yeah.
fantasies are cool though.
Yeah. No, I don't like fantasies
Why not? Let
because
me hear it.
it's a story. It's for me what I have practiced a lot with all these things, and it sounds so holy, and it can't. It's a hard journey sometimes, but like being stuck to this fantasize, you wake up something. It's also creating a story towards yourself. So having this fantasy, you can have it this like I don't want to say a desire, but something you want to experience. But going around and fantasize about it, I don't know. It seems so last year ish like fantasies is also a kind of story that we're attached to.
Hmm. So that,
Fantasies,
man, you're
porn,
ruining my fantasies now.
ejaculations. I mean, but it doesn't I think like the beautiful thing is that you have a fantasy and when you have it, you create a space with your partner and you say it. And then you don't have to fantasize about it anymore. You do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, you have to share your fantasies. You can't just
Yeah.
keep it to yourself. I think that's where maybe the distortions may come in. If you have fantasies and they're not expressed, and they just
Yeah.
get feed. Which again, then the media comes in, and not only the media, but let's talk about a little bit about that portrayal. Which now it's coming a lot more obvious, like everything else in the world right now, but sexuality manipulated by the media, with this
Completely. Yeah.
this prototypes, that or the typical woman or guy that just creates. That's another thing. Without getting into the sexual part of it, it's just the perception, the image, the self image.
Yeah.
And I tell you, because even if it's not related to sexuality, it's the body. And as somebody who did bodybuilding for 5 years, I mean, it was such a terrible thing to judge, your own body because of other images that are out there, which it's
Yeah.
not truly who you are. And it's funny, but once I stopped bodybuilding, maybe it's just me. I had a weakness for judging myself and my body, but once I stopped that comparison of saying like where I am right now and where I should be based on the pictures that I see and the people that I follow and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and what's possible and whatnot, then I started appreciating a lot more my body. And it was like I actually lost a lot of like the progress that I had, because as a bodybuilder, you get really big, you and now that I'm not, that big muscled guy, I kind of like love myself a lot more, So in the same vein, when people are worshiping, this actors and models and all this stuff, which
Yeah.
no offense, but I feel like it's already relegated to like the sheep, like the people that are asleep in this idea that, oh, look at the sheep in the back. Hello, sheep. So
Yeah.
appropriate.
I
So,
know.
it's down to that people that still kind of idolize this people, but that affects sexuality too,
Yeah.
completely, because now they feel like when I'm naked, how do I look?
Yeah.
You're a human. Doesn't matter how you look. You're human, and you just by you being human is enough. And then
Mhm.
being with somebody else who wants to be with you, that's like I don't know. I always saw that it was such an honor to have somebody who wanted to have sex with me, because there is no way you can get more intimate with anybody than in that point, and that is such an honor, you
Yeah.
know. And the
Yeah.
fact that both people want it is just another great thing. So just by that alone, it doesn't matter what body you have. I mean, it's not like you're going in front of a crowd and like judge me. You're going with somebody who loves you, hopefully,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless, anyways, no, no, what do you call, like, examples of prostitution and stuff like that, which is just like, that's, oh God, let's not go
No.
into that.
Let's go
But
deeper. I would like to go deeper with this.
yeah, where?
Sexual force.
No
Because
pun
I
intended.
think we can all be, I think we all can agree on. I mean, look at Kim Kardashian, look at all these like idols. It's such a shame for humanity that we came to here. And I can just share just a quick story here because I got my implant in my boobs when I was 18 because I was insecure and I wanted to correct something in my body. So I chose the quick way, and now I am 28. And after being so in contact with my body, they feel not at home in me anymore because I only want something that is my body. So I have just experienced how it actually is when you take the right road towards healing of your self image and self love, compared to the short road, which is Botox, plastic, butts, muscles, all that. It has nothing to do with that. It's a deeper process of inner standing yourself and create the self love that you need to be completely in love with yourself before anybody else. So I want to share it like that first. And now I want to go deeper with like the sexual force because I think it's interesting, and I think it's interesting that we're in such a denial of it. I had a very interesting. I just came out with a podcast here the other day about the orgasm, um, and funny enough, there was a lot of men that just couldn't. They couldn't let go of this belief that they shouldn't empty their balls or what they said. And I'm like, it's such a distortion of being so attached to the physical, like the body, like the quick sensation, and never really go deeper inside. Okay, what is the sexual force? What is it that is happening down here that just like explodes and creates life? And I think it was a funny point of view because it was actually the men that couldn't let go of that beliefs, and they were like, oh, that's weird, it can't happen. And it means that we're really far away from knowing and understanding the sexual force at its fullest and what it can do.
Well, I can tell you from there that the problem that we face, we men face, Western men, of course, or just any man that has been, um, I guess, self-educated with pornography. Because that's the
Yeah,
thing. I mean, how do you get anything, out of such a, like you said, and I agree, sacred activity?
yeah,
If all the stimuli that you get is porn, right?
yeah,
And or the education there.
yeah,
So, ejaculation becomes like, the main thing.
the
It's like,
thing.
oh, the climax, like after that, the video is over.
Yeah,
It's like the
it's true.
scene is over. It's
It's true.
done,
Yeah,
right? So that is like the peak, it's like the hero saving, the planet or something like that. That's,
yeah,
I mean, that's the purpose. But again, it's first we need to recognize that this is something completely new.
yeah,
This whole perception is completely new in the time span of humanity in general. And there obviously, we're talking about traditional cultures that explore this in many ways. They
yeah,
have a different take on this. But that's the thing with us. Like it's hard to conceive something that could be enjoyed
yeah,
and not have to do with the ejaculation.
yeah,
But also is the fact that we, um, aside from just the pleasure that it may be, which is not explored, in the sexuality of the moment, and that energy that needs to be exchanged, is also that, like I said, linking orgasm with ejaculation it's like an immediate thing, because you can feel an orgasm without ejaculating, right? So for us, it's just like you can't. But the truth is that you can. And I tell you, for what I have been exploring, it's a different orgasm, but it is an orgasm, you know?
yeah,
And I think that's the threshold that men need to explore when they practice, when they get to know themselves, whatever that can, I'm not an expert on it, but what I have explored, that's what shows.
yeah,
The more you know about yourself, the more you can control that energy. But you
Yeah.
have to also be educated on it and understand that what you're doing, and I'll explain it for any male that is listening right now. That energy, which it's completely wasted and exhausted after ejaculation, there
Yeah.
is it. That's why you can't get hard again, and unless you go minutes rest, the amount of energy that you are wasting is it's huge.
Yeah.
For one couple of seconds, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds of ejaculation, big pleasure goes away. Um, so you can do it several times a day, and you can come several times, it's all good. But the amount of energy that you're just wasting, and how tired I used to feel exhausted and tired, for hours, maybe take a nap, I don't know, it really it drains you.
Mm-hmm.
So that energy, what you're doing when you practice tantric masturbation, is it's recirculating it. Like, you don't let it go. You make it flow, comes to you, and this comes again, from let's call it the universe. That energy is being channeled into you, and it's getting accumulated there. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but making it just recirculate inside, which is what women do, right? Like, you don't have a explosion of energy like we do, which does make sense. And I'd love to philosophize a little bit after this, but that energy that gets accumulated there, instead of just wasting it out to the space time, where you have no investment, you just bring it inside, and you direct it whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that you can do. Well, first of all, the orgasm itself has a very powerful feeling, almost like psychedelic again, and it depends on the person, I'm sure, but it does have a really powerful effect. Now, imagine and this is what gets unlocked with tantric masturbation. For all my men counterparts listening right now, you can experience this so many times, as long as, I think the limit that they say, in tantric education in this, I think it's like an hour or so that you can go. But I mean, how many times you can explore this feeling and see where you can direct it, and how does it make you feel, and the shudders and everything. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to do. We had a lot of practice already ejaculating now, so maybe practice something else is what I say, and see how you feel.
Yeah.
So that's it. I kind of lost my train of thought in the philosophy part, so go on while I remember what I was going to say.
But you are right. It's a huge energy that men is, but women can do it too, and women can also ejaculate, not in the same way as the man, but it is. They can also put it out, which is a shame. But you're right. It is this circulation, and that is exactly what we haven't learned in school, which we should have learned in school. And a lot of people is calling it the Kundalini. You can call it your spine. It is not as like a spiritual term as like this floaty thing. It's actually a thing. So what you do is that your base is in contact with all of these glands, organs in you. So whenever you have this orgasm, or you have this feeling of like this explosion of energy, instead of drawing it out, we should draw it in. Because what happens when men, for example, or women push it out, as you said, they get tired. So they automatically get down on their consciousness, and their vibration is lowered too. And the funny thing is that a lot of art back then, and just a lot of portraits of people who have sex, like these huge angles that they're laying like that after sex. It's a proof that people get more unconscious after sex if they have ejaculation, which is a huge problem, because that's automatically creates sheeps that is not aware in their everyday life, because they use their energy and spill their energy instead of putting it up in them and keeping it inside of them and expand. So we devolution actually, instead of evolution. So that's what happened when we spill our energy. And so it's really serious that we shouldn't waste that energy in the way that we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I
I
mean,
tell you,
this gland up here, what you call it in English, pineal gland, right? It's
Yeah.
activated by the sexual forces down here. So if we push it out, we will never connect up here, and we will never understand that we are more than this physical realm, and we will keep on going in this ongoing loop of sorry, relating to physical things rather than non-physical things.
Yeah.
Shame.
That's that's what I'm all about. I want to compress the pineal gland for some DMT.
Yeah, I mean, you can have DMT, you can have your own ayahuasca ceremony with that energy and activate the DMT in your brain and all the good stuff in your brain that will keep you going for hours. I mean, some people can have that orgasm for hours. But
How
we
does
have
that
no
work?
idea. We have no idea. We don't even know that there is different kinds of orgasm. We don't really know anything about this sexual energy and what we can do about with it and about it.
I think, over time, we're seeing a lot more within this ignorance that we are acknowledging. And the more we talk about this, the more it gets injected into our collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Plus, the energy is rising right now on the planet and increasing love and understanding. It's going to heal in general. Just this such a distortion of our own, because our experience as humans, and I'll get into this a little bit because I have to. Our experience as humans has been suppressed in every state of consciousness, whether that be survival, sexuality, socializing, love and understanding, our expression and our connection with the divine. Everything has been completely distorted, right? But
Yeah.
all these things are being healed. All these things are being healed by the vibrations of the planet. And I would say that, yeah, each has their own thing, but sexuality, again, because it has been such a taboo that
Yeah.
nobody talks about it, it's also being healed over time. And that's why this needs to exist even more and more, because while the energies are there, if we're not here to transmute them, I would say, or you make use of them, then we're kind of wasting, the time of this special time that we're living right now.
So much.
I don't know. I'm obviously in the belief that we don't have that many years, before we transcend into our next reality. And I want to see this world obviously healed as much as possible before that transition comes. And sexuality is such a big thing. Now, a couple of things that I want to say before we wrap up. I was talking about when we explain or we understand the development of consciousness and life in general, we start with the creation of matter. And matter is what we would refer to as the root chakra, right? Like, that's the creation of matter through the 4 elements. They combine together and we create matter. That's the first density of consciousness, just creating everything, even the organic molecules that we know. The second chakra, which is the sexual chakra, that's the one that's creating life. That's why we refer to it as life creation, because, yeah, we humans know that sexual means pregnancy, pregnancy means life, babies, etc. And in the evolution of this density of consciousness, or this octave of our consciousness, which is where we're living right now, the second is our orange chakra. It's telling matter how to behave.
Yeah.
That is the creation. That is
Exactly.
life. That's how I explain it in the law of one when I interpret what Ra says, is that imagine first density consciousness is just a bunch of matter getting together, but has no way to behave. So the second level of consciousness, which is second density, is what creates life. And that's why we refer to plants and animals as second density consciousness. Anything that moves, anything DNA. And molecularly, that's what's happening. the sexual energy of the universe is creating life of
Yeah.
any kind. DNA. And DNA is, the building structure of any form of life in the universe.
Yeah.
So this is the power of creating life, the multiplicity of life. That same energy is what we're having here right now. We are a representation of the universe. When we talk about the chakras, that is what we're talking about. I mean, you can experience, the social interaction and, the understanding of people and love and the expression of self. Like, we can go through all the chakras and they have their own purpose, a beautiful energy to it. But
Yeah.
this energy that we're talking about today, the sexual energy, comes from the creation of life in the universe, which is what all people in science would, die to know more about. Where it's right there, it's that energy that's creating everything. So understanding that even from the scientific point of view, this, quantum physics, to know that that energy is the one that's creating that ray, that orange ray is what's creating everything. We have it there. We should really make some good use of it as opposed to just wasting it. That's my take.
That's a good take. Yeah, because it's also here we stop. Like from here and up, we have forgotten the last two. So by breaking that blockages inside of us and letting it flow, it gives us the opportunity to raise in consciousness and be more in contact with this right here, the heart, the expression, the third eye and your consciousness, and allow the flow of that by allowing your sexual energy to ascend in your body. So I totally agreeing with you, which is also interesting because I want to jump out on this. The interesting part is we have this kundalini, chakras, glands, whatever you want to call it. It's there. It's just there. But if you ejaculate, actually the kundalini is turning around and it's turning down, which will make you act like an animal, which is what is portrayed throughout the seven sins. I can't remember them all, but I think people know what the seven sins is. And the ejaculation is actually calling in those form of feelings and attachment and desires, which eventually will make us empty because we are not in contact with this up here that actually matters in order to move forward with our life. So it's really important that we remember that. Do we want to have the kundalini down or we want to have it up? And what I believe right now, what is happening, my mentor also mentioned this, was we have no idea how to be humans because we have been animals for such a long time. We have been in this survival state, being instinct, like anger. We have been so animalistic. So we are either going to make a jump now to how to be human, like animal to human, or we're going to make a jump from animal to soul. And I think that, as you said, the next maybe years will show if we are ending up in how to be human, connecting with the human. Finally, we deserve that, or connecting with the soul. And that could be a beautiful loop to just jump from animal to soul. But I also think it could be awesome to learn how to actually be human for once in our lifetime.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we will make
Man.
a jump, and we are about. I see a evolution of that. People is going into, okay, why am I here? Who am I? And where am I? And I think that's the most fundamental questions that we can ask right now, and how to be us, how to be human, and not animals anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
important.
I can't wait for that. But you know what? That brings me to what I believe that will happen. This division that we're seeing right now in general, like without getting into obvious, details, but this division that we're seeing right now into people who are working towards a higher consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and our perception of the other people that are staying in the lower state of consciousness, that division, what's causing is that it's going to create the environment for us to create that. It's almost like tapping into that full energy that's been out there without the need of other people, and just
Yeah.
get collectively united and be the example of what we want to see, in the world. We don't necessarily have to get to that point where everybody is, but I think that division is what's causing everything. Like we will eventually segregate ourselves from the rest of the world, because we no longer resonate with their politics, their arrangements, their structures.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel this call right now, and we were talking about this before we started the podcast, but this is the resonance that it seems to me like it's happening. I don't know where it's leading us, but that's where I feel.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, Christina said something that I think is Christina Guldeger. I don't know. I'm always butchering your last names, people. But she said the second chakra is still unconscious chakra. It's true. And the first three chakras are, but not so much. The third chakra is the first conscious one, at least the one that creates consciousness as we know it in this human body, because that's where we are right now. When we talk about third density, that's what we're talking about. First density is the root chakra. Then second is the animal, sexual chakra. And then is the creation. That's why also creativity comes from the second chakra, because that's creation. And then the third one is our yellow one, which is the third density where we are right now. So there is consciousness in the third one. And that's the first time we want to transcend from the third, from the fourth. That's why we're going to fourth density consciousness too, because our next dimension of existence is going to be guided by love and understanding. And from there, we're going to start thinking in Christ consciousness, unity consciousness. So that's the little trip I have in consciousness tonight. So that's all I have.
More questions?
No, people were quiet. I kind of expected this. We're talking about sex. I don't think much people want to talk about it, but that's cool. Dale says, "Be the change. Don't await it." Dale always giving us some really cool comments. Love Dale.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, it's true. He's right.
So yeah, my way to wrap this up is, and listen, this is something that I'm going through right now. It's exploring and understanding after 37, almost 38 years of my life. I don't know. I would say probably, like, when did I start my sexuality? Probably when I was 11 or so, or 10, something like that. So it's been like 20 something years not knowing anything but just like exploring what was out there. And now having this, it's knowing more your body, understanding what the sexual energy is. And, the rough part is deconditioning yourself from anything that's you thought was true. And I mean, as with anything, there's a beautiful, light at the end of this whole journey. So
yeah,
more exploration. That's all I got.
Yeah, I want to wrap it up with something too, because we have talked about sex and all these beautiful things, but how to get there. And I have been exploring this tantric fields for like 4 years now, 3 years. And what I have experienced have done a lot for me is, first of all, start, as you also say, to remove all old belief system and habits, how to relate, how we relate with each other, how we depend on each other to awaken something in us, how we cast our responsibility on our partner, how we try to just how little dependent we are on ourselves. So what I have experienced is a good way of building the trust up is building the trust up to me, removing my beliefs, removing my perception of sexuality, removing my ego, first of all. That's a really, really important one, because having sex with ego is like the worst sex ever. We have just made a perception that that's just awesome, which is not. It's not satisfying in any way. And breathing is super super beautiful in order to this activation and in order to spread this energy in your body. Breathing is always helping. And just first of all, this self building up of love with yourself before you go out and seek it in anybody else. Like, you don't want to be dependent on anybody else than yourself. And if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else, or they're going to love you? It's not going to happen. It's just a dependency, and it's just average, and you end up in a 20-year-old marriage, and it's boring, and it's just not nice. So
Yeah.
for self-love, I think that's the most important thing. And exploration with self. I mean, as you say, like self-love. How do you like to touch yourself? How do you like to touch your face? We never do these things. Sometimes I even take a book and I close my eyes and I'm like, I use activation of my own nervous system to feel my own nerve. Like, how does this feel? How does this feel? All these kind of new things of exploration of yourself. That's
Mm,
really good to awaken the sexual energy in, and also get to know your own sexual energy. So
that's
yeah,
good.
that's a lot. Yeah.
That's good advice.
And dancing and shaking and moving, that's also beautiful.
Oh, I gotta get to
I
that.
love that. And you can just feel it immediately whenever you have like danced for, I don't know, 30 minutes. You can feel this sexual energy, and it's so beautiful. It's just like you're sweating, everything is like sittering, like it's like, it's so good.
I need to explore that dancing.
Yeah, get out of your comfort zone, bro.
Yeah,
Shake that ass.
I should. I'm Latino
Yeah,
anyway, so
I would love to see you shake that ass.
one
I would
day.
love that. Yeah, please.
Take the
Cool.
Latino as.
Do it.
All right.
So removing of the beliefs, guys.
This was awesome. Thank you, everybody, for the comments and for
Yeah.
watching. And I think we'll figure out a surprise for next week. See what we can come up with.
Yeah, something interesting, I guess.
Always interesting. Don't
Always.
guess it.
Cool, brosis. I see
All
you
right.
next Friday.
Right, it is.
Ciao.